Hello everyone and welcome to the official Polytopia YouTube channel. Today we have an intense archipelago Kickoo showdown where an exceptional player demonstrates how Rider Roads can somehow still be a viable strategy on a water-based map, and how it is somehow possible to win a match without upgrading any rafts until the last two turns. Let's get right into it. I'm Cloud Glider.
And I'm Ginger77908. So the match we have here for you today is the June Polysseum semifinals, where Vorce, a longtime Polysseum champion, faces off against Kamarel, a strong and upcoming new Polytopia player.
So looking at the map, here we have Vorce spawning in as green Kickoo, as well as Kamarel spawning in as pink Kickoo. So Ginger, just looking at spawn, can you tell me what your thoughts are on this game?
Yeah, so just right off the start, it definitely appears that Carmel has much easier naval and water access. Will be able to you know, build up rafts and build up naval units in the water and be able to make city port connections much earlier than Vorce. While Vorce has much more land in the spawn, so it'll take much longer for him to be able to build up naval units to build and is unable to connect his cities with ports. Though, however, it does look like Vorce does have better density and a city advantage, so definitely interesting spawn all around.
Yeah, I agree with that. It looks like it's going to be a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 city split in favor of Vorce. Ruins look relatively even. Vorce does have access to this one ruin early, but the other 4 ruins are like way in the north and south corner of the map. Not being able to connect cities to your capital is definitely going to be very painful for Vorce in the early game, as when you start off with fishing, you really want those port connections to upgrade your cap and to work towards getting a giant. Since ports cost 7 stars, if you don't have the necessary fish to upgrade it, and you have to do it with a port rather than a capital connection, that's very painful early game. So I do predict that Kamarel will be able to get into the water earlier on, and let's see if that's what happens and how it plays out. Let's see what how the players open. So pretty typical, opening with a workshop on both players' sides.
Warrior turn 1, basic Kickoo openings. And both sides went for the third warrior opening, which I found it to be interesting.
Yeah, so he opens with 3 warriors, and I believe it's because he sees this landmass over here. He's sending 1 warrior to follow this resource indicator, which finds him this ruin. 1 warrior finds a city, and now he wants a 3rd warrior to go explore this landmass where he sees these 2 fish, possibly as indicators. On the other hand, Kamarel also decides to go with the 3 warrior opening. 1 warrior finds a city, 1 is heading towards this fruit as an indicator, and I believe the 3rd one will head towards this fish that is acting as an indicator as well. There's an interesting play here that I would also like to highlight, where Vorce immediately goes for an explorer on turn 3. If we pause the video and actually look at score, Kamarel is still under 1k. Which means that even if they were to meet now, Vorce would only get 3 stars instead of 5. Most of the time when players playing as host capture their first city, they tend to get a workshop instead of an explorer, so that later on when they do meet their opponent, they can get 5 stars. However, Vorce does go for the earlier meet for 3 stars, and we can see here that it's because he wanted to train another warrior to go for this city back here and send this warrior into the water and maybe contest other cities.
I think that was very well played by Vorce because it overall worked out just the way he wanted it to.
Here we see that Kamarel is going for a very strong eco start, taking workshops.
Carmel also captured the 3rd city before Vorce and took a 3rd workshop.
And there's the climbing ruin that Vorce gets. And now normally you wouldn't think a climbing ruin is very good on a Archi map, because you can see there's just within our vision there's only 3 mountains. But here you see that there's this mountain right here, next to New Lima, one of Kamarel's cities, which allows for a very interesting play by Vorce that we can see in a few turns. And here's the first explorer from Kamarel, which unfortunately goes backwards. It does reveal that ruin for him.
You see, like, it also doesn't reveal Lighthouse either, which is quite unfortunate for Kamarel.
Yeah, now Vorce here capturing 2 more cities, putting him ahead at 5 cities to Kamarel's 4. Here's an interesting climbing play that I was talking about. So because this mountain is kind of in the middle of the map, it covers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 water tiles. If there's any naval units within these 5, or I guess 6 tiles, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tiles, if there's any naval units, this warrior can just go ahead and hit it, and it's just a plain warrior, so hitting and being able to damage or trade into any naval units is very advantageous for Vorce in this location.
It's also quite key in regards to zone of control, so Vorce has given himself massive control of the center of the map with that warrior on the mountain.
Here we can see that Kamarel is utilizing his ability to connect cities to his capital and just getting all his cities to level 3. And yep, there's that warrior being able to hit the raft, and he's continually piling on units to.
So I would like to touch on economy real quick, because even though Vorce is on our city, Kamarel still has an improved economy over Vorce due to workshops, which I find to be quite interesting.
Yeah, so it is 15 stars on 5 cities to 16 stars on 4 cities. Kamarel is about to capture his 5th city, but that's all the cities he's going to be able to get this game. And Vorce, on the other hand, just found his 6th city, and he's also going to be able to capture that. So it looks like in the long term, Vorce is indeed going to have that 1 city advantage.
Though Carmel does have currently a naval advantage, like we predicted, and also as of now has an eco advantage due to his higher grid cities and more workshops.
Yeah, if we turn off shared fog, we can see that even though he did not take many explorers, and the 1 explorer he did take ended up going backwards, because he's going scouts, and scouts have 2 tiles of vision, he's able to get a good amount of vision on his opponents still. There's a good amount that he does not know yet, but I would say that for not going explorers, this is a decent amount of vision, and he can continuously press forward for more vision, which he later on does to reveal a good portion of the map.
So, it does not look like Vorce is in a very strong position here. Kamarel just is absolutely dominating him in the naval units department. He also just has a more improved eco, while Vorce does not have very many established ports, nor does he have very many established naval units. Though I will say, the one major silver lining for Vorce is that he has a city advantage over Kamarel, so I'm definitely interested to see how he uses that advantage.
Yeah, definitely. So due to Vorce's poor water access in capital and just being unable to connect cities to his capital and taking the explorers over the workshops, it's looking like he's having a weaker eco and just not as much of a presence on the water. Kamarel, on the other hand, has a booming economy, and he has many units on the water, including 2 rafts. Vorce here does not even have sailing yet if we turn to look at his perspective. However, he does have riding roads, so the turn that Kamarel gets scouts and starts upgrading and trying to establish his naval dominance is the turn right before Vorce decides to go riding roads, which is really important for him as it allows him to actually start connecting cities to his capital and start getting those vital upgrades that he really needs.
Yes, in roads is when Vorce's economy really starts popping off, and he's also able to get the Grand Bazaar, which allows him to get an early giant.
And here is when the first rider comes out. So what Vorce notices is that he will not be able to outcompete Kamarel on the water as things are. Kamarel here already has 4 scouts, 2 more in the back that he can upgrade if he just moves it into his borders. He has warriors ready to go into ports, and overall he just has a more dominant naval presence. So in order to be able to combat that, he has 2 options. The first option would be to combat it with quantity, to pump out just as many naval units as his opponents have and slowly either trade better into his opponent or have stronger units like rammers to kill the scouts. Or he can beat it with quality by pumping out giants and units that require more scouts, more of these smaller and weaker units to kill, which we will see in a few turns is what he opts for. But in the meantime, you can see he actually trained a rider here, which he will utilize to unsiege and hold his opponent off while he saves up for a giant to slowly turn this game around.
Juggernauts are definitely one of the main win conditions for Vorce here, and I believe Vorce uses them very, very nicely to at least help turn this game around.
Yeah, here we can see he's getting the upgrades, killing some rafts with his warriors, again positioning that warrior on that mountain. Getting those resources.
Archi continues to build up his eco, and I like to touch on the eco difference between Vorce and Kamarel. Because I believe Vorce has 24 to 25 stars per turn, while Kamarel has 19. A very large eco advantage for Vorce, which will definitely be one of the major factors throughout the game.
Yeah, and we can see that now is when Vorce gets his 2 giants. And Kamarel here actually decides to go for bombers. Last turn he saved up, how many stars was it? 37 stars, which he utilizes 19 in navigation and 15 to upgrade this raft right here into a bomber, which he uses to kill this raft and splash onto these other 2 units. Which for me was an interesting play, as I don't normally go bombers just for bombers. I would go bombers if there were starfish and things to kind of bolster my eco or for like some quick stars back. Well, what are your thoughts? Would you have gone bombers here, or what kind of tech do you think would have been the best play here?
So bombers are very good at, definitely dealing with very large clumps and sectors of units, but unfortunately for Kamarel in this scenario, Vorce does not have a particularly large amount of units in certain areas, so bombers aren't really giving Kamarel all that much value. While on the other hand, defenders will definitely give him significantly bulkier units they'll be able to throw at Vorce, and Vorce will have a very hard time dealing with. So, in my personal opinion, I do not think navigation was in play. I would have gone for something like strategy to pump out defenders and create defender rafts.
I see. That's interesting. So you think that defender rafts would bring up like the quality of Kamarel's units and maybe allow him to land some more useful sieges and things like that?
Yes, I do think that. Because like you're saying, in this case, I think quality over quantity might be very beneficial. It does not appear that it's the route Kamarel's going towards, which I do not agree with. If we look right here right now, Vorce is actually trying to pump out juggernauts, which is very interesting. He also uses 2 monuments to get a juggernaut in that northern city, and I think that'll play a very big role throughout the game.
Here we can see that right after giving navigation, Kamarel actually goes right into aquaculture and starts getting a rammer for the first siege of the game right here. Now he kills the other warrior, hoping that his siege will hold. However, because Vorce has gotten Rider and Roads, he has a lot of mobility for his land units and he can unsiege safely. He's also moving his Juggernauts into the water to try to make a play and attack Kamarel on this city and this city as well.
Yes.
And here comes Kamarel's first giant. He does it with Gate of Power and another port. Now we can see this bomber is just not having a very big effect on the game, just simply hitting one warrior. And the Juggernauts are advancing. There's a lot of scouts here. The Riders putting in work, hitting the scouts and retreating, getting some good value for Vorce.
Now, I will mention that the Juggernauts are actually giving quite good value for Vorce here because, you know, Kamarel has very large clumps of units in that northern region of the map, which the Juggernauts will just feast on.
Yeah, moving this Juggernaut here will splash 5 units at once, leading to a lot of splash damage. And we can see the Riders are just putting in a lot of work. Oh, and the Bomber is moved into a vulnerable position. And there's the Bomber kill.
He's also using the Bomber's stiff ability to his advantage by continuing to knock Riders into that Juggernaut. The Juggernaut can't do anything to retaliate.
And here we can see that he keeps clearing out the unit in this city, but choosing not to siege because he doesn't want to waste the 5 stars he spent upgrading the unit. Earlier on, if he had taken defenders or a unit more capable of sieging, he would have been able to siege the city and given his opponent a more difficult time to unsiege, as well as just had naval units with more HP to be able to survive against Juggernauts and to deal more damage overall.
And I would like to mention, because Vorce is just getting so much value with Juggernauts, he's sort of just slowly but surely sort of giving him a unit advantage that Kamarel doesn't really have any particular plan to gain that unit advantage back. So I would think that Vorce is definitely sort of developing a much more established and developed naval military.
Yeah, I think from turn 10's perspective, where Vorce had, I believe it was 3 rafts on the water, did not have scouts, did not have rammers, to Kamarel having, 3 or 4 scouts on the water and more rafts on the way, to now this position where Vorce has a Juggernaut in the water, another giant, and some rafts and riders to defend his cities, and Kamarel having rammers and scouts, but overall less threatening units in general. So I would say that from this position, Vorce is definitely ahead and in more of a comfortable position than he was a few turns ago.
And I also wanted to touch on the fact that Vorce still has the eco advantage, and in Kamarel's perspective, when you have the eco disadvantage, you need to have the military advantage to really stand a chance in his military advantage of slipping away.
Yep, it is 28 stars to 23 stars, and the main, or 28 to 21 if we just look at turn 15, and the main reason why Vorce has this eco advantage is because of this city back here. Although it's situated way in the corner and cut off from the rest of the map, like, you can't really move units from this city to the other cities. You have to put it into the water and then move it back onto land, and if you want to move it to the water, you have to move it into a port again. So it's a really slow city to pump units out from, but even then it's still providing him the valuable eco to be able to get those early giants, to get those riders, to build those roads, and to just support his infrastructure in order to attack and just catch up with Kamarel's threatening position in the early game. Here's the second giant from Kamarel. And we can see that after that first bomber, he was not able to get any more bombers. So we can see here that getting navigation was indeed a mistake. He did not pick up any starfish and he did not train any further bombers.
And he's still allowing Vorce to get so much value from his juggernauts. And I would argue at this point that Vorce does now have the military advantage, which you can make a case is arguably game over for Kamarel, because when you have the eco disadvantage, you need the military advantage to stand a chance.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. The Juggernauts are just getting way too much splash value. The Riders are getting a lot of value too with bouncing. They're hitting units that can't hit back. The Juggernaut does not have Retaliate, and the Rafts don't do damage either. So the Riders and the Roads, although it was a huge disadvantage having to get them in the first place to upgrade his capital, Vorce was able to make the units work for him and trade really positively into his opponent. Naval units are really expensive in that they cost 2 stars to make and put into rafts, and another 5 stars to upgrade into scouts or rammers, or 15 stars to upgrade into bombers. That first bomber kill with 3 riders for Vorce was really big in that it was a 9 star for 15 star trade, and his riders didn't even die. And here we can also just see that Vorce is using his riders to hit some giants and kill some units. I believe he hits this Juggernaut a few times as well with some riders. They don't die, they don't take retaliation damage, and they just keep attacking his opponents and giving him value.
Vorce is getting better value per each attack, while also gaining more stars per turn, so he just has more stars on hand, which is just quite unfortunate for Kamarel.
And here he gets the Eye of God monument, I believe. Yep, all 4 lighthouses have a green mark on them. And now he just has way more units on the field, and yeah, 3 giants as well. And
Kamarel is finally starting to invest in Juggernauts, but at this point I think it's too late.
Yep. Even at this point, actually, Vorce just got sailing. If we look at it, I believe this was the very turn that Vorce gets sailing. Yeah, so he has sailing now, but at the beginning of this turn, I believe is when he bought it. Yep, he gets sailing this turn. Builds some bridges, move some units around, just continuously damaging his opponent's units. Oh, here we finally see another another bomber. And a siege from Kamarel, the second siege this entire game. Unfortunately, it does not hold, and Vorce just keeps getting value with these Juggernaut splashes. We can see the riders putting in work again, even doing some cleanup here on the scouts. And from here we can see that there's 2 giants about to siege this city. Another Juggernaut here that will be able to do major damage again, splashing all 5 of these units. And from there is when Kamarel decides to hit the resign button. He has lost his naval advantage. Most of his units now are just rafts and unupgraded, and he's not going to be able to siege the city. So yeah, there's the resign, and that's the game.
I think one of the major win conditions for Vorce is that he got so much value from his Juggernauts, and Kamarel just couldn't find any counter for them. He tried to, get rammers involved, but it just wasn't working because he kept, placing them in very large sectors and bunches, which Vorce's Juggernauts feasted on.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the main mistake of this game for Kamarel was going for bombers for navigation. Because he went for navigation, he spent 19 stars buying the tech, 15 stars buying or upgrading a raft to a bomber. That's a total of 34 stars, which he could have invested in a different tech, like maybe getting defenders, maybe getting rammers, and being able to siege more cities. For example, the only city he sieges this match is this city for 2 turns. Not even consecutive turns, 2 different turns. He does not siege any other city, whereas I think if he got just a defender and maybe blocked this tile and then sieged with a defender, he would have had a lot higher of a chance to be able to hold. Bombers themselves aren't bad, but they're more for holding a line or for pressuring when your opponent is turtled up inland. In this case, he got the bomber just to train one singular bomber that I believe only splashes once and kills a defender and then just dies. Wasn't really able to hold his position or advance his position with the bomber, whereas we can see through Vorce's intense road network that he really maximizes the value he gets out of the riders and the roads and changes it from being a disadvantage, from being a barrier he has to get through in order to connect his city to work towards a giant into something that helps him on siege, into something that trades positively into him and works for him.
So, and because Vorce was just getting so much value from his riders and juggernauts and at a higher stars return, he had more spare stars to spend than Kamarel, which is quite fortunate for Vorce and very unfortunate for Kamarel. Thank you for watching. Join our Discord and other social media. Like and subscribe, it helps us a lot. Links are in the description. If you'd like to see more tournament action, click on the Lyran video on the screen. Take care. See you in the next one.